You're watching Capital City Sunday.
Last Tuesday, the Republican-controlled Senate voted to fire 8 more of Governor Tony Evers' appointees, including regents, judicial watchdogs, and a member of the governor's Domestic Abuse Council. The Senate has now fired 21 of Evers' appointees since he took office in 2019. UW Regents Dana Wachs and John Miller were among those rejected Tuesday. Both of them voted twice in December to reject the deal the UW brokered with Assembly Speaker Robin Vos that calls for limiting diversity work in exchange for funding for building projects and staff raises. Here with me now, former Universities of Wisconsin Regent Dana Wachs. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Happy to do that.
So what was your reaction to your firing earlier this week?
You know, I was really surprised by it, and I was somewhat disgusted, to tell you the truth. It didn't used to be that we had a state government that would disqualify qualified people for boards and committees. It's very disappointing. The way I see it, the state Senate Republicans are, they're like poster children for dysfunctional government, and that's got to stop.
You said you were a bit surprised by your firing, but there were some signs. Now, the Senate didn't offer a reason Tuesday for why you and John Miller were rejected, but there's that speculation it's because you opposed the DEI deal the UW struck with legislative Republicans. And Senate President Chris Kapinga hinted in a post on X in December. He said, quote, "It's good to know before their upcoming Senate confirmation votes that several regents chose their sacred ideology over getting our students ready for their careers." Sitting here today, do you regret voting against the deal?
Absolutely not. I stuck to my principles. I stuck to my morals. I'm a person of faith and family and community. And I think, what we were doing is trying to make the UW system accepting and comfortable for all comers. And if that's somehow wrong, it's outrageous, frankly. And government didn't used to be this way. We used to have Democratic state senates approving Republican governor appointees. I mean, you can take a look at the record in the history. There have been more firings in this sense with this outfit, this state senate, than ever before, I believe.
And I do want to talk about what you experienced during your time in the Assembly in terms of these Senate confirmation processes. But how do you respond to criticism that DEI teaches identity politics and resentment as opposed to providing opportunities to underserved groups?
Well, it does provide. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is just that. It's to include people in the process. If you go on corporate America right now, all major corporations take these things into account. We're preparing people for the real world. And, this whole situation was the making of Robin Vos when he decided to link the two issues together, DEI with the new engineering building and some other buildings. That's not been done before, and it shouldn't be done. The University of Wisconsin system and UW-Madison, that is the economic driver of this state. That is the leader, the forefront of not just present industries, but entirely new industries are being created by the research in the UW system and the like. As well, and obviously the technical colleges are very important as well. But this university system is creating entire new industries, entire new treatments in medicine, entire new avenues of business, and to hamstring us by linking petty political issues to critical issues like building a new engineering building, it's just improper.
And why do you believe that DEI should be something that is part of getting these students ready for the workforce?
Because the real workforce is filled with this, and it's only fair that it is. We are trying to make society accepting, comfortable for everyone. And that is what needs to be done to advance our economies and this system and this government.
You served in the Assembly while former Republican Governor Scott Walker was in office. Can you talk about your experience during that time? Did you see the Republican-controlled legislature then taking a different approach to the confirmation process than it has under Governor Evers?
Well, the way I see it, long ago, perhaps before history started, I worked for a state senator named Paul Offner from La Crosse. And in those days, and we're talking the late 70s, in those days, if you needed to get a bill done, or if you needed to talk with Republicans about an issue, you'd just go to a restaurant where they were, and you'd sit down and you'd talk things out in a civilized fashion. In the 60s and 70s, we used to fly to the moon when we worked together. But this dysfunctional mess is getting in the way of advancement in this society. Now, there's been a lot of petty issues between the two sides of the aisle. When I was there certainly was. But it seems to be getting worse and worse over time. And it's time for some adults to be in that building. And it's time for us to get back together to try to work together for the betterment of Wisconsin and Wisconsin citizens.
Has your firing prompted you to consider running for the Assembly again?
Well, about an hour after I was informed of the committee vote, my phone started ringing off the hook because I'm about 6 blocks in the new 93rd district, and it's a 55% Democratic district. And there's been a Republican in that seat for a long period of time. And we are taking a very, very hard look at running. It's time for some adult leadership in Madison. It's time for adults. And if they don't want to act like adults, then we're gonna get more adults down there. This is ridiculous. So we're looking very hard at it. I'm a very busy trial lawyer, and we're trying to see how we can fit all this in. But we're looking very hard at it, and we'll decide within the next week.
Well, we'll check back in with you then. But to wrap things up, what message do you think this sends to future volunteers?
But, I enjoyed Board of Regents very much. I come from a long line of folks that value education, and I enjoyed it. But it takes a lot of time. I mean, every time we'd have a meeting, there'd be many days where I'm reading all day trying to get to the bottom of issues. It's a serious job, and it's a serious commitment, and it's not paid. I mean, we do this as volunteers. They pay for our mileage, and they pay for hotel rooms for us, but that's it. All we're trying to do is build a better Wisconsin. And these guys bring petty politics into this, and it's a crying shame, to be quite frank.
Dana Walks, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the show. Appreciate your time.
Anytime. Thank you.
Still to come, disappointment from advocates after a bill aimed at extending postpartum Medicaid coverage for some new moms in Wisconsin dies in the legislature. Why they say they'll keep trying.